Within playlists, there are two different ways to schedule your media assets, slides, or playlists. The first being traditional scheduling and the second being override scheduling. Traditional scheduling is usually the most common and means that while the rest of the assets in your playlist are playing, you want some to play during specific times or dates. Let's use my playlist on the right side as an example. I have a slide called Birthday Slide and I only want it to play for this month. We can schedule our birthday slide by hovering over Play Always and selecting the Set Scheduling icon. Your first step will be setting the start date for when the slide will start playing. If you are scheduling something in advance, you can use the arrows to select a future date. In my case, I will select the beginning of this month. Lastly, you will select the end date or the last day of the month in this case. You can also select the days of the week or time you want the slides to start or stop playing. But in most cases, users schedule by date. Press Save when complete. In addition to the birthday slide, we will also schedule the image at the top of the playlist titled Corporate 7. It's an event announcement, but I want to make sure that as soon as the event is over, that it is no longer scheduled. However, this time we are going to copy the scheduling settings from the previous slide to save a few steps. To begin, hover over the previous slide we scheduled and select the Copy Scheduling icon. Then, hover over the asset we want to schedule and select the Paste Scheduling icon. Once complete, you can then click Edit Scheduling. Because we copied over all of the other scheduling settings, all we have to do now is change the end date and time. In this scenario, my event ends on December 19th at 3 p.m. For the first step, we'll begin scheduling our announcement by clicking on the End Date option. From there, we will select December 19th. Then, once that is done, select the Set Specific Time option. To select a time, you will need to click on the clock icon first. Then, once the window appears, I will scroll and click to input 3 p.m. Once you are finished, click out of the window and select the Save button. Now that we have covered one of the most common ways to schedule, let's discuss the alternative, override scheduling. Override scheduling is used when you want a specific asset, slide, or playlist to play instead of the other assets in the playlist. We call this override scheduling because the asset overrides every other asset in the playlist so that it is the only one being shown on the screen. One of the best ways to demonstrate this is with a restaurant menu. Because while you may have different menus such as breakfast, lunch, happy hour, and dinner, you will only show those menus during their allotted times. To do this for the next example, let's start with a new playlist so we can start from scratch. Now that we have a fresh playlist, we will first need to locate our various menus. In this case, our menus were made in our content designer as slides. To get there, begin by clicking on the slides icon. You will then see our menus. Let's start by dragging in the breakfast menu, followed by the lunch, happy hour, and dinner menus. Lastly, drag in the splash page slide. This slide will act as a placeholder when none of the menus are scheduled, or in this case, when the restaurant is closed. Meaning, this slide will not show unless there are no other slides to be played because they are not scheduled. Before we can start applying our scheduling settings, we will first want to go into the scheduler view to give us a better visual. To do this, go to the top right corner, select the View Selector icon, and press Scheduler. Immediately, you will notice on the left that we can already see our schedule. For our first step, we will need to apply the proper settings to all of our slides. To do this, select the settings icon above your placeholder slide or asset. Once the pop-up appears, find the playback mode setting. You will see there are two options besides default, exclusive and fallback. Exclusive would mean that depending on the time you set, this slide will override the others and play instead. While we will want that for our other menus, we will select fallback. This will ensure that when nothing is scheduled, the placeholder slide will show instead of a black screen. We will do the same step for our other menus, but instead we will select the exclusive option. While we are not doing it in this use case, Remember that you can have multiple exclusive slides, assets, or playlists scheduled at the same time. When this happens, the assets that are set to exclusive will be the only ones displaying. However, they will play in a rotation based on their duration assigned in the playlist. Now that we have applied the proper scheduling settings to each slide, we now have to set the times that they will play. We did this before, but now we will only be adjusting the start and end times. Let's start with the breakfast menu by hovering over Play Always and selecting Set Scheduling. Once inside the pop-up, under Time, select Set Specific Time. Then by the start time, select the clock icon. In this example, we will switch to our breakfast menu at 8 a.m. Once complete, we will do the same for the end time, but set it to 10 a.m. Once complete, select the Save button. We will repeat these same steps for all of our menus, but assign them different times that start and end right after the other. For lunch, we will set the start time to 10 a.m. and the end time to 3 p.m. For the happy hour menu, in addition to setting the start and end times, we will also set it to only play Monday through Friday because that is when happy hour is offered. By default, it is set to play every day, so to change this, we can unselect the Saturday and Sunday options. At the bottom, you can look week by week to get a visual of when your slide will play. This is especially helpful as your scheduling gets more complex. Don't forget, just like with the other slides, we will also need to set the start and end time. We will set the start time at 3 p.m. and the end time at 5 p.m. when the restaurant closes. Our last menu we need to schedule is the dinner menu. We will set the start time at 5 p.m. and the end time at 10 p.m. when the restaurant closes. Keep in mind once it is 10 p.m., no other menus are scheduled, so the screen will switch back to the fallback slide that we set up previously. This fallback slide will continue playing until 8 a.m. when the breakfast menu starts playing. Once we are finished with the dinner menu, take a look to the left of the playlist and you will see that the scheduler view has changed. While this view may not be that helpful in cases like this, it's very useful when you are scheduling assets for a limited amount of time. Before we are finished learning about scheduling, let's use everything we have learned thus far and apply it towards another example. I will now start a fresh playlist so we can begin. In this last section, we will learn another example of override scheduling. In this case, let's say we have a visitor coming into our office and we want to schedule a welcome to PeakSignage slide to display when they arrive. Simply put, we will switch from our regular playlist of assets once the visitor gets here, and then we will switch back from our scheduled slide to the rest of the playlist once they leave. To begin, let's build our regular playlist by adding a couple images and a video. I'll simply drag them from our asset panel into our playlist timeline. Then once complete, we need to add our slide we want to schedule by going to the template section. Here we will have a welcome slide that is already pre-made and uses our PeakSignage branding. Now that we have our playlist assembled, until the welcome slide has any settings applied to it, it will continue to play with the rest of the playlist assets. In order for it to ignore the rest of the assets in the playlist, we need to apply the exclusive setting to the slide. To apply this, click on the gear or settings icon above the slide we are scheduling. Then change the playback mode from default to exclusive. Once that step is complete, select the Save button. The last step we need to do is apply our scheduling settings to the slide. Remember, in the playlist's current state, the exclusive setting on the welcome slide allows it to override or ignore all the other assets in the playlist, meaning we need to set the scheduling for this slide so that it only overrides the playlist when it needs to. To do this, hover over Play Always on the welcome slide and select Set Scheduling. In this case, our visitor will be coming on December 19th, so we will need to set this in our start and end dates. After we have done this, we will also need to set a specific time for when our visitor arrives. They will be here from 3 to 4 p.m., so we will set our start time at 3 p.m. and our end time at 4 p.m. We will then press save once complete. No matter the scenario, you should now have a better understanding of how scheduling works. If you find that you need to schedule assets well in advance on specific dates throughout the year, you may want to use the complex scheduling option in the Set Scheduling window. While we won't cover this now, we will cover this at a later date. Thanks for following along. We'll see you in